Opening. On the surface, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead looks harmless. Bright clothes, loud kids, fast jokes that never stop moving long enough to think. It feels like one of those early 90 seconds teen comedies built to play in the background while nothing bad really happens. But behind the pacing and the candy-colored tone, this movie was built on pressure. Real pressure. The kind that doesn't come from punchlines, but from panic. This story was never as light as it pretends to be. In its earliest form, it leaned darker, colder, and far more uncomfortable. What survived to the screen is a version that learned how to smile while sprinting away from its own shadow. These are 10 numbers about Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, a movie that laughs like a sleepover film, but moves like a countdown. Number 1. The movie almost walked into theaters with a name that would have erased it. Before it became a title, people still quote decades later, this film was called Real World. The name made sense on paper. A group of kids left alone, no parents, no safety net, forced into adult survival overnight. But Real World also sounded invisible, generic, serious in the most forgettable way possible. Then pop culture intervened. MTV was developing The Real World, a project that was about to explode into a cultural landmark. 2 properties chasing the same name, and only one of them was going to own it. The problem wasn't spotted early. It surfaced late, so late that the movie was already finished. That meant the film didn't just change its title. It had to change its identity after the work was already done. The solution was aggressive. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. It didn't hint at the premise. It blurted it out. The title sounded like a scandal, a dare, and a bad decision all at once. Co-writer Neil Landau hated it at first. It felt too broad, too jokey, too loud for a story that was actually about quiet desperation. Then Johnny Carson joked about the title on television. That was the moment it clicked. People remembered it instantly. The irony is hard to miss. Fixing the title was easy. Fixing how dark the story almost wasn't. Number 2. In early drafts, the babysitter's death wasn't just a problem, it was a shadow. In the finished movie, the babysitter's death works like a starter pistol. It fires, everyone panics. And Sue Ellen is forced into adulthood before the audience has time to sit with what just happened. The body is barely cold before the story starts running. Early drafts didn't move that fast. Originally, the death wasn't treated as a simple accident the kids had to hide. The script played with something much heavier. Not a full murder mystery, but an uncomfortable tension that hung over the entire house. The question wasn't, how do we fix this? It was, could this have been prevented or caused? The structure leaned into that discomfort. Instead of one big shared lie, the kids were framed like a loose suspect board. Each sibling had a small grievance. Nothing outrageous, nothing criminal. But in a darker version of the story, those complaints stopped feeling like normal teenage whining and started reading like motive. Walter resents being forced into a book report. Melissa hates being pushed into a dress. Zach spirals after losing Cynthia. In the released film, these are stress sparks, background noise, fuel for comedy. In the early draft, they functioned like fingerprints. That's the unsettling part. The same premise can become a, quote, heavy teen comedy, or a movie that makes you watch those kids a little too closely. The final version softened the implication, kept the bones, and built a brighter tone on top of something much colder. The danger never disappears. It just gets outrun. Number 3. Sue Ellen was almost written for a completely different kind of survivor. At an early stage, the energy of the lead character wasn't locked in yet, and neither was the tone of the movie. When the project was still circulating through Fox, the names being discussed were Winona Ryder and Justine Bateman. That casting lane says everything about what the film almost became. Cooler, drear, more ironic. That version of Sue Ellen wouldn't sprint through adulthood. She would observe it, judge it, play along while keeping emotional distance. The story shifts the moment the project changes hands. Fox steps back. The film moves into a new orbit, and the center of gravity changes with it. Christina Applegate comes in carrying a completely different kind of weapon. Not detachment, momentum. Her performance doesn't analyze adulthood. It charges straight through it. She lies with confidence, moves fast enough that no one has time to question her, and keeps the story in daylight, even when the premise threatens to turn ugly. That one decision doesn't just change the lead, it recalibrates the entire movie. With Ryder, this feels like a darker kids versus reality story. With Applegate, it becomes a survival sprint powered by panic, charm, and nerve. Same disaster, Same lie. Two completely different temperatures. Once that tone is set, the next problem becomes unavoidable. Who directs a movie like this without letting it curdle? Number 4. This movie almost grew up under two directors who would have taken it somewhere far less safe. Before the tone fully locked in, the project floated through some very different creative hands. At one point, names like John Landis and John Hughes were in the conversation. That's not trivia. That's an alternate version of the movie. Landis would have sharpened the teeth. His comedy thrives on discomfort, louder chaos, crueler timing. In that version, the babysitter's death risks becoming a joke you're not supposed to stare at too long. Hughes would have pulled in the opposite direction. More warmth, more emotion. The overnight leap into adulthood becomes the heart of the story, with comedy wrapped around a quiet ache. Either approach could have worked. Neither would have resulted in this movie. The job ultimately went to Stephen Herrick, coming off Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And with that choice, the film found its exact speed. Not mean, not sentimental. Herrick directs the story like a race against consequences. Every scene moves as if the lie has a timer on it. Sue Ellen bluffs her way through adulthood. The siblings spiral in different directions, and the pacing never lets the audience stop long enough to question the setup too closely. That's the survival trick. The premise is dark. The lane is comedy. The pacing is the escape plan. The film doesn't solve its problem. It outruns it. Number 5. The instability behind the scenes started leaking into the story itself. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead didn't move smoothly toward production. It bounced. The script passed between companies. The project changed hands. And every shift introduced a new set of rules that had nothing to do with story. That instability didn't stay on paper. It reached the cast. Jennifer Love Hewitt was originally cast as Melissa Crandell, the youngest daughter. Her role helped sell the family as real, not just a setup for jokes. But she couldn't do the film. Not because of tone, not because of performance. Because contracts are louder than directors. Her commitments to Kids Incorporated and the Disney Channel locked her schedule tight. The production couldn't move her, so they recast the role for the least cinematic reason imaginable. No scandal, no rewrite, no creative disagreement, just paperwork. There's something almost perfect about that. This movie is about kids discovering that adulthood runs on invisible systems no one explains. On-screen, Sue Ellen fakes a resume to survive. Off-screen, the film hit the same wall. One signature said no, and the movie had to reroute. The irony is sharp. While the story pretends adulthood can be hacked with confidence and speed, the production learned the opposite lesson. Some systems don't care how clever you are. They just close the door. Number 6. One of the movie's most believable lies worked because it happened in real life first. Kenny Crandell was supposed to be 15. The kind of kid who feels one bad decision away from blowing up the house. There was a problem. Keith Coogan wasn't 15, he was around 20, and only about 2 years younger than Christina Applegate. In Hollywood math, that's not close. That's dangerous. Casting shut the door, so Coogan did the most don't tell mom thing imaginable. He came back in disguise. Different clothes, a wig, a full stoner teen energy designed to overwrite the first impression before anyone asked the wrong questions. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't perfect. It worked. He got the part, and Kenny became the movie's pressure valve, the sibling who absorbs chaos so the rest of the house doesn't collapse. There's another layer most people miss. Show business was already in his blood. Coogan's uncle was Jackie Coogan, one of the first child stars in film history. Famous early, financially exploited, later remembered more for survival than success. Keith didn't get cast because he fit the resume. He got cast because he sold the lie long enough to make it real. That's the quiet echo running through the entire movie. Every character is pretending to be older, smarter, more prepared than they are. Kenny just did it first. Number 7. This movie slipped past in rating by never letting its darkness sit still. On paper, the ingredients are risky. A dead babysitter, kids lying to authorities, language that spikes hard for a teen comedy. In another version of this story, the rating would have turned on it immediately. But the film understands something crucial. Tone isn't just what happens. It's how long you're forced to look at it. The language doesn't land like adult cruelty. It lands like teenage panic. Fast, sloppy, emotional. The kids aren't savoring bad behavior. They're drowning in it. Every time the premise threatens to slow down and feel heavy, the script pivots. Sue Ellen rushes into another lie. Another interview. Another moment where confidence is used as camouflage. The comedy doesn't erase the stress. It repackages it as momentum. That's why the rating never clamps down. The movie refuses to linger. Same ingredients as a darker film. Different flavor. It doesn't play like rot. It plays like panic with a stopwatch. And as long as the story keeps moving, no one has time to ask the wrong questions. Number 8. The same doorway as other teen movies leads to a very different kind of trap. At a glance, the setup feels familiar. A teenager gets pushed into the adult world before they're ready. That story has been told before. The closest comparison is Risky Business. Same spark, different direction. In Risky Business, adulthood is a midnight temptation. Neon lights. Danger that feels exciting because it might ruin you. The chaos is chosen. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead drags you somewhere colder. Fluorescent lighting. Office cubicles. Deadlines. Paperwork. Sue Ellen doesn't step into a fantasy. She falls into responsibility. A job she's not qualified for. Bills that don't care how old she is. A house that starts falling apart the moment she slows down. The lie isn't about being cool. It's about keeping the fridge full. While one movie frames adulthood as temptation, this one frames it as survival. There's no thrill in the danger, only pressure. Same doorway. Two completely different rooms. One lets you dance with consequences. The other locks the door behind you and tells you to keep moving. Number 9. One character's volatility on screen carried real weight behind the camera. Zach Crandell is loud, defensive, always one moment away from exploding. On screen, that energy works as chaos fuel. He feels like the kid who could tip the entire house over if no one is watching. Off-screen, that volatility made people uneasy for a different reason. Christopher Petiet, who played Zach, was already struggling during production. Not in a Hollywood diva way, in a practical, fragile way. When one young actor starts unraveling, the entire set feels it. Schedules tighten. Tension rise. The priority quietly shifts from jokes to stability. After the film, his career continued in flashes. Small roles. Television appearances. A brief moment in Point Break. Then it stopped. Christopher Petiet died in Los Angeles on the 12th of April 2000. An accidental drug overdose. He was 24 years old. The date carries a quiet sting. It was 9 years to the day after this movie was released. Years later, Christina Applegate said she had been close to him, that thinking about him still hurt. Danielle Harris said they reconnected later, even dated briefly. So when Zach spirals through the house, yelling, breaking, pushing against every wall, the comedy changes temperature. The movie keeps going. His story didn't. And once you know that, those scenes never land the same way again. Number 10. This movie didn't win its audience in theaters. It won them at home. When Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead opened, the reaction was muted. Reviews came in. Expectations were higher than the chaos could justify. The box office wasn't a failure, but it wasn't a victory either. Around 21 million on a modest budget still read as underwhelming in a system that wanted louder success. For a moment, the movie looked like it might disappear. Then it found the place it was actually built to live. Living rooms. VHS rentals turned it into a repeat watch. Cable television turned it into a surprise rediscovery. And once you've seen it once, the second viewing hits differently. You're no longer watching to see what happens. You're waiting for the quotes. The meltdowns. The moments where Sue Ellen Stacks lies like a shaky tower just to keep the house standing. The movie doesn't age like a punchline. It ages like a memory. Job interviews under fluorescent lights. Fake résumé. Bosses who smell fear. Kids trying to act grown before they understand what grown actually costs. Critics never fully warm to the tonal mix, and the scores still reflect that first reaction. But cult status doesn't come from approval. It comes from repetition. People didn't discover this movie in theaters. Someone handed it to them on tape, or it appeared on TV at the right moment. And suddenly, it became a quiet handshake between viewers. It didn't win opening weekend. It won the remote control. And that's why it lasted. Some movies don't grow up. They just keep sprinting. And somehow, they never run out of breath. Bonus number. The remake proves the story didn't change. The world did. The 2024 remake of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead doesn't try to reinvent the movie. It traces it. Same engine. Same inciting disaster. Mom leaves for a reset. A strict babysitter takes over. She dies. The kids panic. The oldest daughter lies her way into an adult job to keep the house standing. Even the power structures stay familiar. The intimidating boss role still exists, updated for a modern workplace, with Nicole Richie stepping into that gatekeeper lane. On the surface, the blueprint is almost identical. The difference isn't the plot, it's the environment surrounding the lie. In 1991, the story could hide inside gaps. Landlines, paper, resume, no cameras in every pocket, no permanent record following every mistake. In 2024, nothing disappears. Every lie has friction. Every move leaves a trail. A culture that documents first and questions later makes the original premise harder to sustain. The remake adjusts the mechanics to survive modern logic, but the pressure changes texture. The chaos feels tighter. The consequences feel closer. The casting shift matters too. The 2024 version features a largely black cast, where the original was mostly white. That alone adds a different social weight to familiar scenes. Authority reads differently. Risk reads differently. The lie doesn't float the same way. Most reactions land in the same place. It's solid. It's watchable. It's fine. Which quietly raises the real question. If the story hasn't evolved, and the tension doesn't deepen, why remake it at all? That question circles back to the original film's strangest strength. It never pretended the kids were ready. It just dared them to keep moving anyway. One dead babysitter. One missing parent. One lie big enough to pay the bills. Some stories don't age because they resolve. They age because the pressure never changes. Only the room does.